We are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June 17th regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez. Councilman Lees.
Present.
Councilwoman Overby.
Here.
Councilman Bragman.
Here.
Supervisor Van Scoyac.
Present. Councilwoman Kathy Burke Gonzalez will be joining us later in the meeting if she can. She has a medical appointment. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today we have 5 public hearings, and that'll be followed by a public portion where members of the public may call in, and we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and then that will be followed by resolutions. But first, we have Hugh King, our town crier, here today with us.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I was saying before, Councilwoman Gonzalez emailed me a piece that she gave about the food pantry at the clubhouse, and it made me realize that we should have been talking about what people have done in the past in East Hampton history to help those that are less fortunate. And as I was telling the supervisor, I never realized that even though people gave money to the Springs Food Pantry, for example, it wasn't going to be enough because they didn't have access to food. Is that right, Mr.
Yes, that was the reason the food bank was set up by the cookie.
And I didn't know there was one in Wainscott, a food pantry in Wainscott. So that made me think, well, what's happened in the past to take care of people? And I went back to the town records, and in 1698, 1699, and 1700, what they're doing is they're taking care of a woman named Sarah Whitehair. They're paying money for people to entertain her, which meant, I think, that they were keeping her at the house. Also, she was transported to Oyster Bay to the doctor for her cure. And I have no idea what that meant. They also bought her clothing. This is all through the town. These are in the town records. And Captain Mulford took care of her for a while. And then again, they took her to a Dr. Cooper. So for this one woman, they're putting money in the town budget to take care of her. And then we go to the East Hampton Town Trustees. They were giving loads of wood to people in the wintertime. There are several, and this is 1727. They're giving wood to a person named Katie. They're also giving blankets to the poor. This goes on for 3 or 4 meetings. Loads of wood, shoes, and blankets to people. And then we come to the Ryerson Fund. And I didn't realize this when Councilwoman Overby asked me about Clinton Academy. I didn't mention this. William J. Ryson came to East Hampton after the Revolution. He had 6 daughters. Now, everyone thinks he came here to get them married. Well, that may be, but the main reason he came was to send them to Clinton Academy, because Clinton Academy allowed children, girls, to go to school there. And when he died, he left $500 to the East Hampton Town Trustees, and they could use the interest off that money to pay for poor children to go to school. Because I found out that years ago, you paid by the number of days your child went to school. Well, if you didn't have the money, you didn't send your child to school. Well, the Ryson Fund took care of that. And school district number 4, which was Springs, unfortunately had the most children that needed to be paid to the Ryson Fund. But then they had the Hook School District, the Northwest School District, and even part of Sag Harbor and Amagansett. And you can see in the trustee records money being given to each school district to pay for poor children to go to school. And then finally, this one really surprised me. In the budgets in the 1850s and the 1860s, they put money aside for the support of the poor. In 1852, they put $2,000 aside. That was more than the budget for the entire town. Then we have 2,000, 750, 1,200. And to see how much money that is, In the 1920s, the average salary for someone in East Hampton working would be $15 to $20 a week. Multiply that by 50, that's like $1,000 for the year. And they're giving $2,000 in the 1850s. That's a huge commitment from the people in the town of East Hampton. That's all I have. Next time I come, I'll have a question for everybody, okay?
Thank you, Hugh. And I just wanted to point out that the William J. Ryerson Fund is still active, and that the trustees give out an annual scholarship every year to some student who, I guess, distinguishes themselves through an essay or other form of presentation to the trustees.
Yes, thank you. That's right. It's still in existence today, but they can only use the interest.
What year, Hugh, did William Ryson come to East Hampton again?
Well, it was after the American Revolution, and Clinton Academy opened up in 1784. So around that time he was here.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Hugh, for joining us.
I'll see you next time.
So we'll move on now to public hearings. Carol, if you please read the first hearing notice.
Sarah will read the COVID disclosure for all the hearings. Due to the public health and safety concerns related to COVID-19, the town board will not be meeting in person. In accordance with the governor's executive order 202.1, said public hearing of the town board will be held via video conferencing. A transcript will be posted at a later date. The public will have the opportunity to see and hear the meeting live and provide comments at the hearing. The public can watch the public hearing live on local TV channel 22 or live online from the public meetings link on the LTV website. If any interested members of the public would like to provide comments on the matter and the financing thereof, comments can be called in during the meeting. The conference number for such calls is 351-888-6331. Written comments and/or questions may be submitted via email to the town clerk at the following email address: cbrennan@ehamptonny.gov. Some comments and/or questions will be considered at the public hearing, provided that they are submitted by email no later than 9 a.m. on the day of the public hearing and submitted via telephone by way of the conference number. Pursuant to the requirements of the executive order of the governor of the state of New York, a transcript will be prepared of the public hearing and a copy shall be filed with the town clerk and placed on the town's website. Please check the meeting agenda posted on the town's website for further instructions or for any changes to the instructions to access the public hearing and for updated information. Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing, Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, on May 17th at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, to consider comments of all persons regarding a local law amending Chapter 102, Building Construction, Article 1, Building Construction, Section 102, Purpose and Intent, Section 102.24, East Hampton Town Energy Savings Program, an abstract of which is follows. Section 102.1, Purpose and Intent, is amended to add reference to the inclusion of the New York Stretch Energy Code 2020 supplement to the Energy Conservation Construction Code of New York State for 2020. Section 102-24, East Hampton Town Energy Savings Program is amended to add conference to the inclusion of the New York Stretch Energy Code 2020 supplement to the Energy Conservation Construction Code of New York State 2020 to provide for new HERS rating requirements, to set forth the methodology for calculating gross floor area, for determining gross floor area for compliance, and set forth insulation requirements for commercial structures.
Thank you, Carol. We have Lauren Steinberg from our Natural Resources Department here to give us a brief introduction. Welcome, Lauren.
Thanks, Peter. So the New York Stretch Code is a voluntary and locally adoptable stretch energy code that was developed by the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, NYSERDA, and a team of stakeholders and consultants. East Hampton has had 2 town board work sessions on the New York Stretch Code. There are several municipalities that have adopted the New York Stretch Code already in New York, and several Long Island municipalities that are also considering its adoption as well. Statewide, Building to the 2020 New York Stretch Energy Code is approximately 20% more efficient in residential building and roughly 7% more efficient in commercial building, for an overall increased efficiency of 11% over the 2020 New York State Energy Code. New York Stretch is a statewide model code for New York municipalities to use to meet their energy and climate goals by accelerating the savings obtained through their local building energy codes and reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the building sector. Future New York State energy codes will include provisions of New York Stretch, so the adoption of the Stretch Code will help prepare municipalities, builders, and code officials for future code cycles. We've discussed the cost benefits analysis that has been done for the residential and commercial New York Stretch Code. And while there are higher upfront costs building to New York Stretch compared to the state minimum energy codes, energy savings and as a result, energy cost savings will provide building owners with a return on investment estimated about 11 years or less. And there have been several training sessions on the New York Stretch Code, and there are upcoming training sessions for both residential and commercial New York Stretch to be held in June, July, and August. So we've asked that Margot Thompson and Matt Evans from Newport Ventures, who have been helping us along with NYSERDA on navigating through adopting this code, to be present to address any technical questions that may come up during the hearing. I also wanted to mention that since noticing the public hearing, we have received some feedback on some clarifying language that we think we may amend this draft with, as well as a change in one of the provisions that the Department of State has found conflicts with the Uniform Code, and a few options for rectifying that, which would amend this language as well. So I wanted to ask Margot to go over some of these amendments briefly for the record, if that's okay, either before comment, after comment, whatever is preferred.
Why don't we just go to Margot right now, and welcome, Margot.
All right, well, thank you very much for inviting me. Some of the changes that we plan to make after getting some feedback would be to include language. Currently, there's language in there requiring for new homes and substantial reconstruction requiring a HERS index. We're going to add some language specifically pointing to section 406 of the ECCC NYS 2020 as amended by New York Stretch, because that just makes it a more clear connection with the HERS index requirement and the ERI path in New York Stretch. Also, some add language in addition to new buildings and substantial reconstruction, add additions and alterations, just to also clarify that the Stretch Code will apply to additions and alterations in the same way that Chapter 5 of the Energy Code does. Another revision, Appendix CB to the commercial portion of the Stretch Code basically contains the R value tables. In the body of the Stretch, for whatever reason, NYSERDA only included the U factor tables. The R value tables are a little bit more familiar to architects and builders and developers. So there will just be language that incorporates Appendix CB so that one can demonstrate compliance using those tables. And lastly, Lauren mentioned the conflict that DOS has recognized between one provision of the New York Stretch and the New York State Uniform Codes, which is the requirement for balanced ventilation. DOS, the language around types of mechanical ventilation is found in the residential code of New York State, not in the energy code. So technically, the requirement for balanced ventilation amends one of the uniform codes, not just the energy code. And that adopting, it's still allowable to adopt a more stringent provisions to one of the uniform codes, but the process for doing so is slightly different and would require an additional filing with the Code Council. So there's the option to either for a community to either remove the section pertaining to whole house mechanical ventilation or balanced ventilation, or complete that additional filing. So those are some of the changes that we plan to make right now in the language of the draft resolution as you see it here.
Can I just ask you, you kind of lost me on the first one. I think it was all the I think it was all the acronyms.
Oh, okay.
Can you give that one more try? I was trying to take notes and I think I lost it.
Do you mean?
Where you were talking about, it was the very first one you talked about.
Was it the ERI, energy rating?
Yes, yes.
Energy rating index path.
Okay.
Is one of the paths of compliance.
Okay.
In both the Energy Conservation Construction Code and in New York Stretch.
That's what I needed.
Okay.
Thank you, Margot. Michael, do we have any callers on the line for this public hearing?
We have about 5 callers. I don't know which hearing they're pertaining to, but I'll unmute the first caller I see.
Let's ask.
Sure.
Here.
The last 4 digits of this caller's number is 2119. I'll unmute that caller now. Hello, caller, with the last 4 digits of your phone ending in 2119. You're live.
Yes, good morning. First of all, is this the hearing concerning the purchase of 2 waterfront lots in the Broadview Association in Amagansett?
It is not. We're having a hearing on the energy stretch code. You can stay on the line.
What time?
I can't tell you what time that will be, but we'll double back to you. We'll make a note that your phone number is associated with the acquisition and project plan addition CPF properties.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to the next caller. The last 4 digits end in 0467. I'll unmute that caller now.
Good morning. It's Rich Silver. Can you hear me?
Yes, Rich. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I just wanted to voice my support for the town's adoption of the New York Stretch Code into the town's building code. Adoption of a more stringent building ordinance would definitely help the town move closer to its goal of deriving 100% of its energy from renewable sources. I think this is extremely important. As Lauren already said, this would also provide energy savings to buildings owners and tenants, electricity amounting to 11% annually for those implementing the stretch code. I think it's a particularly opportune time given the construction boom that the town is witnessing. And obviously this would be both helpful for the town and reaching its renewable energy goals, but also despite a modest upfront cost, ultimately this would translate to ownership of more comfortable, healthier building with greater value. So long-term, this would be beneficial to the homeowner as well. And those are my comments. Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you for calling in, Rich. Be well.
Moving on to the next caller. The last 4 digits of their phone end in 7155. I'll unmute that now.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I'm Paul Munoz, resident of Springs and the chair of the Energy Sustainability Committee of East Hampton. I just wanted to call in and express my support for the town board adopting the New York Stretch Code into the town building code. We all know that mitigation is the key to reaching all the goals that the town has set for itself, and this code is crucial to helping and do that. Seems like even with the pandemic, new construction continues, and it may have even increased as more people were migrating out of the city. So the stretch code obviously lowers energy use and greenhouse emissions associated with new and existing buildings, which is a much better course of proactive action than waiting to later retrofit these buildings. That's all I had, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for taking the time to call in, Paul. Be well.
Thanks.
Moving on to the next caller. The last 4 digits of this caller's phone is 4601. I'll unmute that caller now.
Good morning. This is Chris Tasuno. How's everybody? I'm calling both about this the stretch code and the accessory building modification. I want to voice my support on the stretch code. However, currently, I think everybody's aware about the difficulties of acquiring products, and the cost of construction has skyrocketed, and just the cost of building materials. I'd like you to consider perhaps a short postponement, a few months. It's just very difficult right now, in my opinion, for some of the smaller additions and homeowners to do things, and I think it just compounds the frustrations and difficulties that they're experiencing at the moment.
Okay, Chris, thank you for your comments. We'll certainly consider that.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next caller. The last 4 digits of their phone is 1510. I'll unmute that caller now.
Hi, my name is Nina. Can you hear?
Hello, Nina.
Can you hear me? Hi, I'm unable to connect with you guys on the Wi-Fi, so I'm just called into the meeting, and I would like to make comment when you're talking about Wainscott. So I just dialed in from the start.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
get back to you. Yes, we'll come back to you, Nina, when we do that hearing.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks for calling in.
Moving on to the next caller. The last 4 digits of their phone end in 6509. I'll unmute that caller now.
Yes, good morning, members of the board. This is Pat Trunzo. I'm calling in mainly to address the hearing on the Wainscott rezoning, but I would like to also state my support of the board's pursuit of adopting the stretch code under the energy code. But I have to second Chris Tasuno's comments regarding the current cost of building materials and perhaps waiting a short period of time to maybe allow those prices to come back down to reality. So with that, I'll wait for the next hearing.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Appreciate your comments on this hearing, and we'll get back to you when we discuss Wainscott.
At this time, there are no other callers.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Carol, if you'd move on to the next hearing notice.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Margot, for being on.
Notice that the town board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 17th at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter. This matter may be heard to consider a local law amending Chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code at Article 12 thereof, the use district zoning map and abstract, which follows. A local law to amend the use district zoning classification of certain lands located in the hamlet of Wainscott, town of East Hampton, from central business to B residence with limited business overlay, LBO, such properties being described as follows. First property is tax map number 300-197-123.5. It's at 386 Montauk Highway, Wainscott Professional Center. It's 0.60 acres. It's currently CB, and the new classification would be B residence to limited business overlay. Second property, 300-197-123.06, 384 Montauk Highway, Learned Hands Court. It's 0.57 acres, the same two zonings. Third property, 300-197-123.07, 382 Montauk Highway, the Wainscott Professional Center, it's 0.67 acres. Next, 300, 197, 124.1, 380 Montauk Highway, Eastgate Cottages, it's 0.85. 300, 197, 141.01, 374 Montauk Highway, Nina Batelier, it's 0.22 acres. 300, 197, 141.02, 372 Montauk Highway, 0.25 acres. And it's 372 Montauk Highway LLC.
Thank you, Carol. We have our planning director, Joanne Powell, here to give us a brief overview. But before she starts, I would like to acknowledge the fact that Joanne Powell is going to be retiring very shortly. And I wanted to recognize her for her many, many decades of service to the town of East Hampton. She started with East Hampton in 1988 and has served our community extremely well over all of those many years, as working her way up in the department to senior planner, then assistant director, and now director for the last several years. We wish you all the best in your retirement, Joanne, and thank you for helping to keep East Hampton the very beautiful place that it is today.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. It's been my honor and privilege to have tried to keep East Hampton the special place that it is. Thank you very much. So the town board created limited business overlay districts many years ago to prevent the highway sprawl that's so common along major roadways elsewhere. And the idea was to combine businesses to commercial centers, keeping a more rural character between the commercial centers while still allowing for low intensity businesses that could utilize the existing residences and be designed to retain a residential character. So okay, are you seeing the map now?
No,
No, we're not, Joanne.
Okay,
Maybe
I'm
just continue, just give a brief overview.
Okay, so right now the zoning along this area, Montauk Highway in Wainscott, is entirely residential on the southerly side. On the northerly side, starting at Town Line Road, the town acquired a number of lots that are for open space purposes. And then starting at Westgate Road, all the way over to Georgica Drive, it's zoned central business. Then there's a small stretch of CI, and then again, CB zoning to hedges. So the Wainscott Hamlet Plan, which was adopted by the town board last year, examined zoning and made a recommendation that the 7 most east-westerly lots on the northerly side of Montauk Highway that are zoned CB be rezoned to be residents with a limited business overlay district. And that is what, in one of those lots, was since required by the town for open space purposes. So the hearing today is on the rezoning of 6 lots between Westgate Road and running to the east from CB to be residents with a limited business overlay district.
Thank you, Joanne. I know we have a couple of callers on the line. Michael, if you could go back to those folks, I believe 2119 was one of the people who wanted to speak.
Sure thing. I'll unmute that caller right now with the phone ending in 2119.
About the potential acquisition by the town of 2 lots, waterfront lots.
I picked the wrong number. My mistake.
Okay.
So Pat Trunzo and a woman named Nina.
Yes, I have those. First, I'll unmute Nina. The last 4 digits are 1510.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm in the car on my cell phone.
Yes, Nina.
Okay. Okay, thank you. My name is Nina Bataller, and I own 2 of the 6 properties affected by the proposed zoning that you guys are talking about today. They are the 2 smallest lots out of the 6, and they sit side by side on the far right end of the map, completely surrounded on 3 sides by what will continue to be CB zoning. I'm sorry I can't see the screen, so I imagine you guys have maps, right?
Yes.
Each of my parcels. Each of my parcels is nearly 1/3 of the size of the other 4 in the proposed area that you're talking about rezoning. Descriptively, they're known as 374 Montauk Highway and 372. The western property, 374, is my home, and 372 is a 2-story retail store with a storage building behind it. I'd like to make it known that I strongly object to the extremely restrictive zoning classification of B residential with limited business overlay. Of the 6 parcels proposed for rezoning, my house is at 374 is my primary residence and is on less than 100 by 100 foot lot. It's only 1 out of the 6 parcels that are under review. They're solely an existing residence. As such, my little house, I think, is really the most impacted by your proposed rezoning. The other 5 affected properties are already completely built out as commercial structures. And as far as I know, they've all been used commercially for many, many years and will continue to do so. And yes, I do understand that the proposed zoning will limit them as well in terms of their use, but my house is clearly the most impacted of the 6. It's not really the only one impacted drastically by your proposed zoning change. I'm referring to the changes that the LBO zoning would mean in terms of allowable lot coverage and therefore total allowed buildable space. B residents with an LBO will lessen or diminish my total usable lot coverage for, building, the parking, any other structures from 80%, which is allowed now in CB, to only 50%. And specifically in my case, since it's such a small little property, it goes from 7,700 square feet of total usable area down to 4,800 square feet. With parking and all the rest of that stuff, it makes it almost impossible to do anything of any size there, meaning I'll only have 40% less allowable lot coverage than I do now. On a really small property like mine, that's a big deal. To be precise, my lot is 9,643 square feet in total. It goes from 7,700 square feet allowed to 4,821 square feet allowed. That's like a pretty huge deal to me. Historically, my property, my residence property at 374 has always been, since it was built in 1954, surrounded on all sides by commercial properties. As per your zoning recommendation, the old Swamp Star Room property that you recently purchased will continue to be zoned CB commercial, and it borders my property on the west and all the way across the back of both of my properties on the north side. That newly purchased piece of town property, which has been fenced all the way around with the cheapest stockade fencing I think you guys could buy, and it really offers no park-like benefit to my property, as Mr. Bragman had previously suggested. Honestly, it's more like a little ugly little prison wall around it to me, but we're not even going to mention that you guys put the fence up backwards, facing like at the back side of the fence, which is against town rules, but that's another story. Sorry, I just had to mention it. On the other side of me, on the east side of me, is SRK Pool Company, and they're on the adjacent eastern border of my property, and they will be unaffected by this zoning change. SRK Pools will continue to maintain their CB commercial zoning, and they keep an entire fleet of trucks and heavy-duty commercial construction equipment on their property directly adjacent to mine. So just to be clear, it's not like I'm living in a normal residential neighborhood at all. I'm surrounded by commercial property on 3 sides, and I'm facing the busiest road in the Hamptons. And that's not going to change with this new proposed zoning in any way. So I understand that your intention is that by rezoning, you're going to somehow prevent any intensification of development that might be detrimental to the character of Wainscott. And I also understand that you guys want to prevent any possibility of strip development that might make for high traffic congestion. However, I find it impossible to understand how any rational person could think that rezoning my 768 square foot house that's on less than 100 by 100 foot property would be more of a benefit to the town than it would be like a devastating detriment to me. Because by doing so, you're going to take away nearly 40% of the buildable use of my property. It also appears to me that you guys are proposing this zoning change as somewhat of a knee-jerk reaction in response to, like, home goods on the old Plitt Ford property 100 feet east of me. Because everybody was up in arms about the ugly building, and they all want something done about this, you know? Home goods is just about 2 acres. And LoopNet, you know, I looked up on LoopNet, it says it's 19,850 square feet of building. Compared to my house, which is on less than 1/4 of 1 acre, my property is 10 times smaller than home goods property. My house is virtually 19,000 square feet smaller than home goods. It's like literally and physically impossible for me to build anything that would even remotely hint at being a strip mall on my property. Given the tiny size of my lot, I find it hard to fathom how you guys could even think that I could ever build anything at all that isn't already protected or prohibited, you know, by the existing town building code rules, or that somehow I might build something on my little lot that could somehow have a detrimental impact on the character of the town. You know, out of all the miles on Montauk Highway street frontage, my house has 100 linear feet of street front on the south side of the road, or excuse me, on the north side of the road. And the entire property is surrounded by existing commercial property in both directions. Like, how can I do anything on that little tiny little lot that's going to be responsible for changing the character or the traffic flow in the town of Wainscott? It's just, that's not realistic. It's not possible. As far as the effect of limiting of LBO, limiting my ability to treat my home the way any other homeowner treats their home is extremely unfair and unreasonable, in my humble opinion. LBO has rules that directly affect everything that I could ever want to do there. It's extremely restrictive, not allowing me to garden without somebody's oversight and permission if I want to do anything to the trees, have a south-facing picture window to enjoy the light. I'm a picture framer. I look out that window all day, all the time. Even park my car in the driveway on the side of my house. It's not only ridiculous, unfair, and overreaching, but it would greatly diminish my enjoyment of my own home. It's clear to me that these rules were designed for highway-facing houses that border neat road neighborhoods, but not houses like mine that border commercial construction company on one side and vacant town-owned property on the other. My property is not going to diminish in any way their use, no matter what I do there. As a pre-existing resident in a CB, commercially zoned area, I'm already subject to strict restrictions to what I can legally do there. And from the time I bought the house 17 years ago, in 2004, I've complied with all of those restrictions. I've run my home business according to the rules that allow me to use 25% of the ground floor for my showroom. I have a 2 square foot sign. I've had 0 infractions from anybody, including the yearly fire marshal inspection for the last 17 years that all passed with flying colors. I think if Chris Baker's still around, he'll attest to that. I also think that Mr. Bragman could attest to my use of the space as well, as he personally inspected the inside of the building when somebody questioned my use of it a while back, though I know that that was a while ago. He's always welcome, though, to come back and check. It's still exactly the same. Also, it's not like my house is a historic property. It was built by Cornelius Wilson, an auto mechanic, in 1954. He lived there with his wife and daughter for 50 years and ran a retail store for the last 40 of those 50 years on the easterly adjacent property of 372 Montauk Highway, which I own. To my knowledge, Mr. Wilson sold furniture, antiques, car-related stuff, and other things out of my house at 374 for nearly a decade before he built a 1,900 square foot retail store next door, which even today continues to be a retail store. My little house at 374 is not a valuable piece of history that must be preserved at all costs. It wasn't designed by a famous architect. It was built entirely with 7-foot-long wood scrap. Mr. Wilson proudly bragged to me about buying cheaply, and it's not exactly what you'd call prime representation of 1950s architecture by any stretch of the imagination. Rezoning my residence and adding the restrictions of B residents with limited business overlay would mean that it would be nearly impossible for anyone to ever upgrade my nearly 70-year-old house in any consequential way by adding a couple of rooms or changing the layout to allow a larger family to live there or do something with the business because of the restrictive setbacks and the lot coverage limit of the LBO. My bedroom now, you know, because it's 40% smaller. It's like, God, guys, it's tiny enough as it is. My bedroom right now is 8 foot by 10 foot, and it only holds a single bed and a tiny little dresser. We're not talking about a spacious house. It's 1 story with a total of 3 rooms and a small bathroom. I got a tiny little bedroom, a modest kitchen, and a little tiny dining area, and a front room that I use for the showroom for my legal home business. LBO restricting the maximum allowable size of future changes to the building by 40% makes it virtually impossible to sell the house to anyone with a family who might ever want to live there, and it's an extremely unreasonable restriction for me in exchange for questionable, if any, real benefit to the town. I respectfully request that you rethink the zoning from CB to B residential and instead come up with something less restrictive, please. I know you guys feel compelled to do something. After doing my research, I hired Rick Whalen, who I believe to be one of the smartest guys around. You probably agree with me when it comes to zoning and the law. And I've been talking to him and listening to him for a few hours. From what I understand, neighborhood business zoning is less restrictive than LBO and would give you guys plenty of control over how the area would be used and further developed. It also seems that NB, neighborhood business might be a more reasonable solution that would give you guys peace of mind while not impacting my property quite so drastically. Mr. Bragman himself has pointed out to me in writing that prior to when CB zoning was implemented, my properties were both neighborhood business zoned for many years. So I believe that rezoning to NB would be a good compromise, and I hope that you guys agree. I think I made my point, and I sincerely hope that you'll be kind enough to rethink all of this and consider our suggestion to drop the B residential LBO and change to NB zoning instead. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. We really appreciate you calling us and letting us know how this proposal would impact you on your properties. And we'll certainly take all of your comments into consideration.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the time.
Be well. Michael, can we go to the next caller? I believe Mr.
Yes.
Trunzo.
Yes, I'm
Call
gonna,
509.
correct. I'm going to unmute that caller right now.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board. I'm appearing representing the Wayne Scott Professional Center, the owner of literally half of the parcels this law proposes to rezone from central business to be residents with a limited business overlay. We are opposed to the proposed rezonings for the many reasons stated herein, but we're also here hoping to have a conversation with you about a better means to the ends you seek. 1 existing and 2 possible alternatives that are more appropriate and we think much fairer than the perverse and severely restrictive proposal being heard. But before starting that conversation, I must first raise a couple of technical objections that concern the validity of the notice we were given and what we think is a glaring omission in the list of parcels included in this proposed amendment. With respect to the notice, under Article 9, which is entitled Administration of the Zoning Law, in Section 255-930, Amendment of Chapter, subsection G, entitled Use District Map Amendments, Notice to Property Owners, a written notice is to be delivered personally or by mail, addressed to the last owner of record of such property at the address set forth in the current official tax roll of the town of East Hampton. The notice concerning the 3 parcels comprising the Wayne Scott Professional Center was not, in fact, addressed to the last owner of record of all 3 parcels, which is Wayne Scott Professional Center, LLC. And in fact, the resolution directing the town clerk to publish and give notice of this hearing incorrectly lists the record owner of 384 Montauk Highway. That owner is not Learned Hands Court. I believe these defects are fatal flaws in the mandatory due process required by law, and that the board cannot act without first correcting this defect. As for the glaring omission, why is parcel 300-197-10-37.1, which has a street address of 26 Eastgate Road, being left out or excluded from the proposed rezoning? This parcel, which is immediately adjacent to the north of 372 Montauk Highway, which is included in this proposal, is also presently zoned central business. According to the Wainscott Hamlet study, which is now part of the comp plan, every parcel south of Ardsley Road and west of the block formed by the Home Goods and SRK Pools parcel was recommended to be rezoning. Omitting or exclude, and by the way, that property is now occupied by the Tripoli Gallery. You can see it from the highway. Omitting or excluding it without explanation or justification, I think, is arbitrary and constitutes disparate treatment that is in and of itself unfair. Turning now to the proposed rezoning, the Limited Business Overlay District was created in the 1970s to solve a particular problem concerning existing houses fronting the Montauk Highway. I know this for a fact because I was an assistant town attorney to then town attorney Russell Stein, who wrote the town's modern zoning code and incorporated the LBO provisions into the new code. One of the few provisions from the old code that was kept. The problem LBO was created to solve is this. In the latter half of the 1970s, the traffic on the Montauk Highway had reached a volume that made living in these houses unbearable from the noise, engine fumes, and vibration. But for these very same reasons, the owners of these houses could not sell them and move to a quieter street. Nobody would buy their house as a home to live in. The repeated result of this conundrum was that the afflicted owners would petition the town to rezone their property commercial. Thus occurred the many instances of scattershot commercial development along the highway between hamlets. LBO was created to avoid commercial rezonings along the highway by allowing tightly limited commercial use of these houses under the express condition that they continued to look and act like houses. 5 of the 6 parcels included in the proposed rezonings have never had houses on them and have never been used residentially. Wainscott Professional Center, which was originally the site of the Out of This World Inn, a restaurant and nightclub, is an office park and was approved as a special permit use allowed in the CB zone. To take these parcels and rezone them to be residents with the limited business overlays in an inverted, perverse use of the LBO district that it was not intended for. This bizarre backward employment of the LBO zone also pertains in the case of the 380 Inn, adjacent to the east of Wainscott Professional Center, and Nina Battalia's property at 372 Montauk Highway, currently being used as the Michael Del Piero Interior Design Showroom and office. Yes, the central business zone allows a wide variety of commercial uses, but the town's land use regulation regime does not consist solely of its use district map designations. All of the uses permitted or specially permitted in the CB zone must be the subject of site plan and/or special permit applications reviewed and approved by the planning board. Why does this board apparently have such little faith in a board it appoints and such low regard for the power of the planning board, a board many of you have served on? I'll give you 2 examples to show you that you should trust the planning board to exercise sound judgment in deciding what is appropriate development in this very section of the Wainscott Central Business District that you are considering rezoning. The first is recent. You will readily recall the proposal for a car wash on the site of the former Star Room Restaurant and Nightclub. This proposal created great alarm in the Wainscott community, and that apprehension was well justified. The planning board, after according the applicant the due process it was entitled to, turned the car wash proposal down flat. The planning board, listing a litany of planning justifications, said no, loud and clear, and the developer dropped the idea. The second took place more than 35 years ago. It was, in fact, the site plan review for the Wainscott Professional Center under the original developer. It took 7 years for that developer to get the project approved, and not for lack of diligence. During those 7 years, the planning board, under then Chairwoman Deborah Foster, scrutinized and shaped the development to be largely what you see today. 3 detached, smaller buildings which in form and mass resemble that of residential architecture with the parking located behind. All set in a cohesive campus-like setting with abundant landscaping and plenty of open space. Don't forget that the comprehensive plan is first and foremost a working document for the planning board. They are the primary implementer of the goals and objectives contained in the comprehensive plan. Recent Parkland acquisitions, one to the west of Wayne-Scott Professional Center along the Montauk Highway between Westgate Road and Town Line Road, and the other east of Eastgate Road, the site of the former Star Room Restaurant and Nightclub, coupled with the recommendations in the adopted Wayne-Scott Hamlet study, provide greater justifications than ever for the planning board to prevent the over-intensive commercial use of the parcels that are subject of today's hearing. And there is also a penetrating observation in the comprehensive plan, in the Wayne-Scott Hamlet study, as a matter of fact, that this board should bear in mind as it considers what is necessary in 6 or 7 parcels that are the subject of this hearing. Under the heading of build-out, found on page 12 of the study, this true statement is made. Quote, the frequent limiting factor is the town's parking requirements of 1 space for every 180 square feet of retail or office use. The lot area available for parking tends to run out before the allowable minimum building area is reached. As every land use attorney and professional working in the town today well knows, parking requirements have become the primary constraint or limiting factor for almost every commercial development. Given the small size of several of the parcels, including in the proposed rezoning, the parking requirements alone will constrain the size and scope of any future redevelopment. Next, I turn to the specific objections we have to the LBO. The notice for today's hearing recites in the 5th whereas clause that commercial uses are specially permitted in the LBO district. There are a total of 10. If you eliminate 3 that are commercially unviable because none of the properties that are subject to today's hearing has a large enough parcel to make those uses viable, those are animal husbandry, a tennis club, and a semi-public facility, that leaves only 7. This is exceedingly few compared with the 25 permitted uses and 26 specially permitted uses in the CB zone, and the 24 permitted uses and 24 specially permitted uses in the NB zone. The proposed rezoning is not from a greater commercial district to a lesser commercial district. Rather, it is a rezoning that is fundamentally residential with a sliver of low-intensity commercial uses that must be specially permitted by the planning board. The 6th whereas clause recites that 4 of the 6 parcels contain office uses that are specially permitted uses under the current CB zoning and would be considered a special permit use under the proposed B residence LBO zoning. To say that the false equivalence of this statement is disingenuous would be an understatement. Wayne-Scott Professional Center, as it exists today, could not be built and would be non-conforming under the B residence LBO zoning. How and why? Let me count the ways. The front and side yard setbacks imposed by the B residence dimensional regulations are more than twice the same setbacks required under the CB designation. The building coverage allowed under the B residence is less than half that allowed under the CB zone, as is the total lot coverage allowed, which is 50 versus 80%. With over 25,000 square feet of pavement, over 600 linear feet of sidewalks, and nearly 10,000 square feet of buildings, existing improvements almost certainly exceed the residential total lot coverage maximum. Under 255-357C of the zoning code, which lists specific limitations imposed on commercial development in the LBO district, it states that, quote, new construction of a structure for commercial use is limited to a maximum total gross floor area of 2,000 square feet. All 3 of the office buildings at Wayne-Scott Professional have a gross floor area in excess of 3,000 square feet. Under 255-358B, entitled Appearance Standards, it mandates that all lighting shall be residential in character and limited to the minimum required for safety. Lighting at Wayne-Scott Professional Center includes 16-foot tall overhead lights in the parking lot, downlighting of the building entrances, downlighting of the 7 signs, 8 post lanterns, and 2 bollard lights to illuminate the sidewalks and street address numbers on the buildings. This necessary lighting provides safe passage for tenants and visitors is hardly residential in character. And under 255, 358E, appearance standards again, it states that paved parking should, when practical, be limited to 50% of the parking requirement of the proposed use. Gravel or grass block parking for the offices at Wayne-Scott Professional Center is absolutely impractical. Under 255, 358I, appearance standards again, it states that the access point and driveway should be as residential in character as possible. The entrance to Wayne-Scott's parking lot from Westgate Road is not residential in character, nor is its parking lot. Under 255, 358M3, appearance standards, it states large expanses of lawn are discouraged. Wayne-Scott has large expanses of lawn, and in 2016 was presented a recognition award by the Wayne-Scott Citizens Advisory Committee for its, quote, outstanding commitment to the visual landscape of the Wayne-Scott Business District. Finally, let me turn to what I think are reasonable alternatives that should be considered. As I said when I appeared at the hearing for adding the Wayne-Scott Hamlet study to the comprehensive plan, I am in agreement with many of the goals and objectives for Wayne-Scott set forth in the study. Wayne-Scott is the least Hamlet-like of all our business districts. Transformation of the Wayne-Scott Central Business District into a more coherent, centered, attractive, and walkable downtown is the right planning destination. It is a vision that Wayne-Scott Professional Center, as it exists today, is not incompatible with, and we think positively helps it realize. Achieving these worthy goals does not require taking the five owners whose property is the subject of the proposed rezoning and making them the only losers under the Hamlet study, while the rest of the CB district owners to our east become winners, reaping the rewards and benefits as the vision for a more beautiful and revitalized business district is realized over time. The best course of action is to simply let the planning board do its job. They are capable of winnowing the permitted and specially permitted uses under the central business district zone to achieve the goals and objectives identified in the Wayne-Scott Hamlet study amendment to the comprehensive plan. This board should not feel compelled to do something just for the sake of appearances, looking like it is doing something in response to the Hamlet study. The bigger objectives identified in the Hamlet study, particularly regarding the 70-acre CI parcel to the east and the forming of the necessary public-private working partnership with the owners of the commercial properties in the CB district, are where this board's efforts should be focused. If after due reflection, this board is convinced that the CB district classification still presents too wide a variety of commercial uses, then it should consider changing the zoning to neighborhood business. Office use in neighborhood business is a specially permitted use and would not make Wayne-Scott Professional Center nonconforming. Or, if office use is deemed a compatible, lower intensity commercial use, why not consider creating an office district classification? The neighboring municipalities of Sag Harbor and Southampton Town both have office district zones under their zoning. And under the Sag Harbor zoning code, there are 31 permitted uses and 31 special permit uses under their OD zone. In Southampton, there are 47 permitted uses and 15 special permit uses. Again, I hope you'll consider these statements, and I thank you for your time.
Pat, thank you very much. We appreciate hearing from you, and what you see as the potential impacts and your suggestions. We'll certainly take them into consideration.
Okay, I did submit my letter in writing.
Yeah, I did see that come in this morning. Thank you. Michael, do we have any other callers on the line for this public hearing?
I have a new caller. We can see what they're calling for. The last four digits of their phone are 7681. I'll unmute that caller now.
Hi, this is Richard Whalen. I am here to comment on the subject public hearing.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
You can hear me, I assume?
Yes, hear you fine.
Hi, Peter.
Please continue.
Thank you. All right. Good morning. Thank all of you, by the way, for paying attention. I know it's the not the most exciting subject, but for the property owners who are affected by the proposed rezoning, this is very important. So I represent Nina Bataller. You heard from Nina earlier. She owns two very small lots on the north side of the Montauk Highway in Wainscott. They're both around 10,000 square feet in size. For the record, those properties are 372 Montauk Highway, which is her residence, and 374 Montauk Highway, which contains a two-story commercial building. It's a retail showroom for furniture and interior furnishings, and there is a warehouse storage building behind it. The commercial building is operated as a retail business since at least 1964. Nina told you this property was once owned by a gentleman named Cornelius Wilson. He also owned her house. Her house was built in 1954 as well. It's 768 square feet in size, one story, very small. The lot is less than 10,000 square feet. Hers is the only house, only residence fronting on the north side of the Montauk Highway in Wainscott. I think the Wainscott Hamlet study made a mistake in the proposed rezoning to LBO, and that's what I'm going to discuss. I do have great regard for the people who worked on those, not just the Wainscott Hamlet study, but the other town hamlet studies. I think overall they did a very fine job, but they weren't attorneys, and I think in this respect they didn't fully appreciate the impact of going from central business all the way to a B residence zone, even with an LBO overlay. That change would severely impact the affected property owners, of which there are 6, and you've heard not only from Nina but also from Pat Trunzo, who owns, or through his family owns, 3 of the affected parcels. First of all, I think, and as Pat adverted to this as well, I think this is a misuse of the LBO zone. Limited business overlay was designed to be applied to existing residential neighborhoods. That's how it was first applied when LBO was enacted originally in the 1970s, and then was amended in the 1980s, when Pat was an assistant to Russell Stein. As Pat pointed out, 5, and as I pointed out in a letter which I've also sent to you, 5 of the 6 properties affected, they're already commercially developed and have been for many, many years. The only house of the 6 affected parcels is Nina's little tiny one-story dwelling. This is a backward use of LBO. I think also that it's discriminatory insofar as it affects Nina's lots. As I said, her 2 lots together total less than half an acre. Immediately to the east of her, and I should also say to the north of her as well, because the lot directly behind her business lot is developed in the same way as her business lot, is basically the same size, and under the town's proposed rezoning, it will remain in CB. But to her north and to her east are about essentially 16 acres of central business zone, and as you get to the Georgia Drive area, they're interrupted by the I'll call it the Tintle property, which is around 70 acres of commercial industrial property. So at the western end of this big block of commercial zone, basically the proposal is to take, and there's also, of course, the 4 lots to the west, including Mr. Trunzo's property, but basically you're taking Nina Vitaller's 2 little 10,000 square foot lots and saying, we're going to rezone, everything in the east will stay central business, but we're going to rezone hers to B residence and LBO. It's not fair, it's not reasonable, and it will greatly harm her. Particularly it harms her with regard to her house. I did a little analysis for you in the letter that I sent you. On the north side of Montauk Highway, as I pointed out, hers is the only residence on the entire strip from Town Line Road all the way to Wainscott Stone Road. On the south side of the highway, and that's a little longer, that's about a mile in length from Town Line to Wainscott Stone Road, there are about 10 residential lots. And as you probably realize, most of the residences there are set back. They're fairly deep lots. They're wooded. Where there are residences, they're set back south of the highway, off the highway. Nina doesn't have that option. I mean, she's right on the Montauk Highway. She's only got 10,000 square feet of land. One of the consequences of changing from central business to LBO, or to basically to B residence with LBO, is although there are still a very limited number of uses that are allowed in the LBO, for example, office use, you're subject to B residential dimensional regulations. The most important of those is you're limited to 50% total lot coverage. Think about trying to put in a parking area and a driveway, even for a small office building, and trying to stay within 50% total lot coverage. It's very difficult if it's possible at all. It also means, and this is one of the quirks of the LBO regulations, you are required, when you already have an existing house on the property, you're required to use the existing house. Not only can you not tear it down and build a new building, which is more suitable for whatever the commercial use you're proposing is, you're not even allowed to move the building. If she wanted to shift the building forward on the property, convert it to an office and put parking behind, that's not allowed in the LBO zone. So, the point is that LBO, basically a fundamental B resident zoning, even on the one residential lot affected here, which is Nina's house lot, it's not an appropriate zone. What we would recommend that you do, and we understand, the Hamlet study is now part of the comprehensive plan. We certainly understand the basis of it. I have great confidence in the 5, town board members here. You're all intelligent people. I know you want to do the best for the town, and I think you can do that and not unduly punish the affected property owners. Pat Trunzo offered several options. I mean, certainly the option of rezoning from central business to neighborhood business is something that NITA would accept. We do not have a problem with that. It is a de-intensification of the commercial use, but it is not nearly as harsh as rezoning these properties to what is essentially a residential zone. I would like to offer that for you as an alternative to what the proposal is today. So, as I said, I've also submitted a letter making many of the points I've just made today, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate you're paying attention to this, and hopefully you will take my comments into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. We certainly will take your comments into due consideration, and thank you for calling in. Michael, you want to check to see if we have any other callers for this public hearing?
At the current moment, we don't. There are a few people who've called in and said that they want to talk about future hearings, but there are no new people waiting.
In that case, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to close.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Thank you. Carol, if you'd move on to the next hearing notice, please, and I'll entertain a motion to combine the hearing record.
I make a motion to combine the two next public hearings.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passed and carried.
Take notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on June 17th at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard on a proposed local law providing for the adoption of a revised community preservation project plan pursuant to section 64E of the New York Town Law, which provides for the preservation of open space, historic places, and recreational areas within the town of East Hampton, including the incorporated villages therein, to include approximately 5 acres of vacant land located at 28, 24, and 20 Broadview Road, Amagansett, reputedly owned by Joseph and Nancy Walker and Salvador Graziano, and identified on the Suffolk County tax map as 300, 104, 2, 25, 26, and 27. Take notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing pursuant to section 247 of the general municipal law and section 64E8 of the town law of the state of New York on June 17th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, to consider the following: the town's acquisition for open space purposes with community preservation funds of a vacant property located at 28 and 24 Broadview Road, Amagansett, reputedly owned by Joseph and Nancy Walker, and consisting of approximately 3.55 acres of land at a cost to the town of East Hampton not to exceed $9,300,000, plus associated costs, survey, title, prorated tax, and recording charges, said property being described on the Suffolk County tax map as 300, 104, 2, 25, and 26. The Walker property. The town's acceptance of both a monetary donation of $3,300,000 towards the acquisition of the Walker property with community preservation funds, as well as the donation of other land for open space purposes consisting of a vacant property located at 20 Broadview Road, Narragansett, reputedly owned by Salvador Graziano and consisting of approximately 1.46 acres of land, which costs will only be for the survey, title, prorated tax, and recording charges, said property being described in the Suffolk County tax map as 300-104-227, an amendment to the 2021 CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include said properties.
Thank you, Carol. Michael, does Scott Wilson, please? I believe, Scott, you're here with us today.
I am.
Introduction.
I am. I'd be happy to
That's our
speak.
Director of Land Management.
So hopefully you can see those properties right there on the aerial that I've shared. And I know there have been some requests from the public to update the CPF project plan, which is actually a macro view of preservation townwide. Thank you. I just want to let the board and the public know that the document is imminently ready for review and will be forwarded to the board early next week, then released to the public. I'm hopeful the board will actually schedule us for a work session in July so we can make a presentation. The properties subject to this hearing were not represented in the project plan. However, the law allows for some flexibility, allowing properties to be added through a public hearing process. Lest you think these properties were not properly reviewed and assessed, we took a micro look at these, and in fact, we take the same review on each property that comes to our attention. In short, I make a review of the property with within our own database for the pertinent information. I then visit the property for a better understanding of what is being offered. Then I request a planning department assessment, which have been immensely helpful and for which I am grateful. And if you'll bear with me, I'd like to read the assessment for this property. The subject properties are located on Broadview Road off of Albert's Landing in Amagansett and are considered to be merged and to be one buildable parcel. We're just talking about the Walker properties here, the two Walker properties / one buildable lot. The parcel is located within a residential area, is adjacent to the Bell Estate Section 3 Property Owners Association open space along the shoreline, and is within close proximity to open space lands owned by the town of East Hampton and the Nature Conservancy. The subject property is zoned A3 residential and is contiguous with other properties zoned A3. The parcel is not recommended for acquisition in the CPF plan, although the adjacent parcel to the southeast is recommended for acquisition. The parcel is unimproved and uncleared with very little disturbance from neighboring properties. The property contains bluffs with tidal wetlands along Napping Bay. The parcel is situate near or within a number of specially designated areas. The property is within the Suffolk County Pine Barrens, within the Acaponic Scenic Area of Statewide Significance, part of Peconic Estuary Program's Montauk Critical Natural Resources Area, and the Coastal Erosion Hazard Area line passes along the northeastern shoreline. The majority of the property is within an X flood zone. The Planning Department considers this parcel to be a strong candidate for acquisition. The property provides an opportunity to purchase a large area of shoreline along Napping Bay, which can also help to create additional public access to this area. The parcel has the potential to impact areas far beyond the limits of the property lines, and its preservation can help improve water quality of both Napping Bay and, to a lesser extent, Fresh Pond. That's just an assessment of the 5-page report.
Thank you, Scott.
So I take that information and I present that information that I have gleaned along with the planning assessment to the CPF Advisory Board, who grade and rank each property reviewed. We review about 100 parcels each year. Once ranked, I discuss the property and what we've learned with the town board, who have the responsibility to either pass or move forward with an appraisal. If the board is so inclined, we appraise, which is a completion of our initial assessment and review of a property. I would point out that the appraisal does not necessarily mean we'll proceed to try to acquire, but the report avails the board with additional information which can assist them through their decision-making process. Initially, we reviewed the 2 lots, 1 building lot, owned by the Walkers, which, as you heard, received a strong recommendation from the Planning Department. It also received a strong recommendation from the CPF Advisory Board. The Planning and Advisory Board, however, do not take cost into consideration with regard to a property's conservation value. However, the town board does have that dubious responsibility. In this case, a neighboring property owner, Salvatore Graziano, had offered a monetary donation to help the town leverage its funds in order to preserve this property. Ultimately, the town board was not sufficiently willing to move forward with preservation without both the reduction of the cost to the town and the donation of a third vacant lot owned by Mr. Graziano, 20 Broadview. With the inclusion of the additional lot, it creates better connectivity for habitat purposes. As you can see by this aerial, there is a significant investment in preservation in this area by the town, the Nature Conservancy, and the association. So thank you to the Walker family for offering this property to the town. In fact, thank you to any landowner willing to offer their property to the town for preservation. But special thanks to Mr. Graziano, owner of 22 and 20 Broadview, for helping to make this preservation probable. Regardless of this benefits to him directly, it also preserves natural habitat, tidal wetlands, and freshwater wetlands draining towards Fresh Pond. This property meets the criteria set forth in Town Law 64E, and as such, I would ask the board to pass a resolution adding them to the project plan and one to acquire.
Thank you, Scott. Michael, can we go to the phones? I believe we have at least one caller who had been interested in speaking at this public hearing.
Yes, I'll unmute that caller now. The number is ending in 2119.
Good morning, board. My name is Jack Kirkwood. I'm a resident of Bell Section 3. I live on Denniston Drive in Amagansett. The only information I have on this proposed transaction is from the East Hampton Press on May 27th, which I just received a few days ago. Within the article, a very short bit of information said, since the lots are within a private homeowners association that exerts authority over its use through legal covenants. That's the only reference to the association. One of the covenants within our documents, which include articles of incorporation, bylaws, and of declarations, is that the sale of any lot, any property, will be charged a transfer fee of 0.5% upon closing of the property. So this sale of 9.3, rounding it off, would mean a $50,000 transfer fee would be due the association upon closing. Also, Mr. Graziano owns one lot within Bell Section 3 or Broadview, and using a fair market value of $1.5 million for that lot, that would be a transfer fee about $7,500. So that's $57,750 and the transfer fees. Besides that, after the closing, the two lots owned by Walker and the one by Mr. Graziano would be subject to the annual assessment made by the Association for Maintenance of All Common Ground. And that would be paid annually by the new owner as long as they own the lot. So besides common charges for maintenance, which have averaged $500 a year for the last few years, there are assessments. Previous assessments included many thousands of dollars to restore the dock, and what we're looking at in the future, at least repaving the pedestrian trail for $150,000, a new roof on the funicular, which is the 7-story stairway, used to be the funicular to the beach, and so forth. So I see no mention of any of this in the article. So that's my main reason calling it, is to protect the rights of the members of the association.
I can address some of that if you'd like.
Please, Scott. Go.
Okay. So, I didn't speak to the reporter who wrote the article. However, contractually, we've already agreed, and the donor and the seller already have agreed to ensure that the flip tax is taken care of. There is also going to be a presentation from the association with regard to future dues that would be a responsibility or not a responsibility in this case. We've acquired a number of properties within associations, and the contract will be subject to the association's approval of these transactions, and what the town generally asks is a release from those future dues, and the town usually is asked in reciprocation to not be able to use any amenities that the association has. So simply by the town acquiring or preserving this property doesn't necessarily give the town or all town residents the right to use amenities within the association. Your covenants and restrictions are very clear on that. There'll be no breach in that regard.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay,
Was that Mr. Kirk?
Yes. Pardon me?
Yes. So was that answer helpful, Mr. Kirkwood?
Yes. The annual meeting for the association is, again, governed by the bylaws to be the third Saturday of July, which is July 17th this year. And that's probably when the association will vote on this. You know, one comment on the three lots. There are 65 lots in the subdivision, and each lot is assessed accordingly. So what this would do is remove 3 lots, or roughly 5% of the lots in the subdivision, and all the current costs would then be paid by the remaining 62. So they have to absorb the missing common charges that were previously paid every year. So again, that is the main reason I called, and I don't fully understand yet the full benefit to the people of East Hampton for these almost inaccessible lots.
We appreciate you taking the time to call and comment today, Mr. Kirkwood.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Be well. Thank you. Michael, do we have any other callers on the line?
Yes, moving on. The next caller's last 4 digits of their phone end in 8764. I'll unmute that caller now.
Good morning, Town Board. Or I should say good afternoon. This is David Buddha. I'm on the speakerphone. If I'm not coming across clearly, let me know, and I'll take off the speaker function. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear,
Yep.
David. Good afternoon.
Very good. Again, thank you. If you've opened up your emails today, you will see that I have submitted extensive comments in writing to the board, to the town clerk, and to the town attorney. I'll also send a copy to Mr. Wilson if he hasn't already been shared a copy. It includes not only a letter, but numerous exhibits, all of which I ask be entered into the record for this hearing. Well, I am calling obviously out of concern for both of these 2 public hearings, and this is a combined public hearing. I guarantee you I won't talk as much as Mr. Trunzo did on the one single public hearing, but I do have a lot to say. The first hearing obviously is, the first aspect is to have the CPF project plan amended to include 3 parcels, 28, 24, and 20 Broadview Road, which is all within Section 3 of the Bell Estate Subdivision, which is map 8151. It was filed back in July of 1986. The second aspect of the hearings, the combined hearings, is whether or not to purchase 28 and 24 Broadview Road for $9.3 million and to accept a quote-unquote donation of $3.3 million and the conveyance of the vacant parcel at 20 Broadview Road. I assume, by the way, that donation of the vacant parcel will be subject to the existing easement, which is why Mr. Graziano and his wife purchased that, I'm sure, because they needed to get access to build an access road to their residence property, which is number 22 Broadview Road. And I'm sure that any acquisition of number 20 will be subject to that roadway easement, which they required. Neighbors, who are two married attorneys to my understanding, own that residence, which is now nearly complete. Its construction is now known as 22 Broadview Road, but it is not part of the Section 3 Bell Estate subdivision. It is adjacent to it. Because the terms of this CPF-funded transaction are, in my opinion, so highly unusual and so expensive, my curiosity was aroused. I undertook some research to obtain a fuller understanding of the proposed transaction. My conclusions are that the acquisition would be an extraordinary waste of substantial CPF funds and constitute probably the single most inefficient expenditure of CPF monies in the history of East Hampton. Based on my research, I believe this proposed transaction would be an unwarranted and unnecessary acquisition when evaluated by the environmental and land preservation standards that are ordinarily used to evaluate CPF transactions. When the huge cost is weighed against the relatively small amount of land that would be preserved and the one actual building lot that would be eliminated, that's the two Walker properties which have been merged. I'll get into that more in a moment. I strongly believe the public benefits would be minimal at best and simply are not worth the price tag. The state law that created the Peconic Bay Region Community Preservation Funds wisely mandated that the town board of each participating community adopt a community preservation project plan. This plan must list every project which the town is considering to undertake with community preservation fund monies. It includes every parcel which is determined to be necessary to be acquired in order to protect community character. The project plan should be determined by a comprehensive, objective, professional, and I should add open process of evaluating the environmental conditions of properties throughout the town and by establishing priorities for potential town acquisition. I welcome Mr. Wilson's statement that that job has been undertaken and soon will be revealed, and the town board will soon be engaged in that, I hope. Unfortunately, for a number of years, the town has simply ignored the statutory requirement that the CPF project plan be updated no less than every 5 years. Our current CPF project plan is now 10 years old. Interestingly, of all the 4 properties that are relevant to this discussion, the only one that currently is in the 2011 CPF project plan is the one that's being developed, the one that's owned by Graziano and his wife at 22, what's now known as 22 Brookview Road. That's the one that was deemed desirable to be acquired. It obviously is not going to be acquired because it's being built upon at this moment. Instead of updating the project plan on an as statutory basis requirement, the town has often allowed the process to be driven either by a seller's monetary desire to maximize their sales price by enticing the CPF to acquire property on an ad hoc basis. Or sometimes, as I believe is the case here, the process can be and has been driven into high gear by neighboring property owners' desire to eliminate potential adjacent development that they consider to be detrimental to their own interests. Here, development of the merged building lot at 28 and 24 Broadview Road would allow the building of a substantial residence that would literally overshadow the neighbor's new mega mansion at 22 Broadview Road, which was required to be built a mere 30 feet from the western adjacent property boundary due to the steep slopes and other environmental constraints that exist on that property. And they also had to develop an access through the Bell Estate by sharing, by developing easements and developing a roadway that meanders off their property. Some might admire the seeming ability of the neighbors to call upon the town to provide $6 million of other people's money, sometimes referred to as OPM, to leverage their own efforts to eliminate the nuisance of potential development that would devalue their own investment. I do not. Allowing the CPF land acquisition process to be initiated by sellers, agents, and substantially funded by neighbors who would be the primary beneficiaries distorts and bastardizes the ordinary process, which is designed solely to benefit solely designed to benefit the public as a means of preserving community character. I submitted a Freedom of Information FOIL request. So far to date, the only thing I've received was a copy of the February 24, 2021 evaluation form prepared by one of the town planners, which, by the way, only concerns 2 of the 3 properties that the town is proposing to acquire. So I have to wonder where the evaluation form is for the 3rd property, which would be number 20 Broadview Road. I've reviewed it carefully. Mr. Wilson read parts of it to you. I'd like to put my gloss on that report. What I found is that the evaluation form has failed to clearly address 2 critical facts. Number 1, the Walker property, which is 28 and 24 Broadview Road, is already substantially preserved and protected by a scenic and conservation easement that is approximately 150 foot wide, that fully protects the critical eastern bluffs that overlook, from a height of about 50 feet, the privately owned beachfront property below. Nearly 1/2, maybe between 45 and 50% of the Walker property is covered by that existing town-owned easement. I've given you a copy of surveys that demonstrate that and the property cards for the 3 properties that are at issue in this hearing. The second issue that is a little bit ambiguous in the report, because in one place it suggests that the properties, it acknowledges that the Walker properties have been merged, but in other places it obfuscates that issue. The Planning Board evaluation does not make clear that the 2 Walker tax map and subdivision lots have been irrevocably merged into a single buildable lot. In fact, it contains the misleading statement that, quote, there should be no development constraint issues with the construction of residences, that's S plural, without the need for setback variances on either of these parcels. And that's referring to the 2 separate tax map lots that constitute one buildable lot currently owned by Mr. and Mrs. Walker. I won't read this, but I've given you documents concerning the Walker deeds and the fact that the express restraints are part of their deeds, have been acknowledged by the town, and have been confirmed by subsequent deeds of merger. The Planning Department evaluation includes the implausible, if not impossible, statement that the property provides an opportunity to purchase a large area of shoreline along Napeague Bay, which can also help to create additional public access to this area. Poppycock. What shoreline? The approximate 150-foot wide eastern section of the Walker property is mostly high bluffs that are fully protected by a scenic and conservation easement. It does not contain any access to the beach below currently, and it is not permitted to develop an access to the beach below under the rules and regulations of the Property Owners Association. Only about 2% of this property, the Walker property, actually extends down to the shoreline, with 98% being uplands, as I read the documents. Moreover, that beach is privately owned by the Broadview Property Owners Association, Inc. It is posted with a sign that states, private beach. The public is only allowed to walk the beach at their own risk, no vehicles, no fires, no alcohol, no fishing. I've given you a copy of the sign. Also, the property owners association posts the sign at the entrance to the subdivision reserve area that once served as the main entrance to the Bell Estate on Old Stone Highway, with a sign that says, "Private property, please do not enter." I've given you a copy of that sign. The Planning Department evaluation also contains the far-fetched assertion that the parcel has the potential to impact areas far beyond the limits of the property lines, and its preservation can help improve water quality of both Napeague Bay and, to a lesser extent, Fresh Pond. Really? Elimination of one potential new innovative alternative low nitrogen septic system is going to improve the water quality of vast Napeague Bay, or that of Fresh Pond, which is located more than a third of a mile from the subject property? If you believe that, I have a bridge in Brooklyn that I would like to sell you. The town's evaluation form, however, is quite useful as setting forth a list of factors that militate against making the proposed CPF acquisition. Let me enumerate them. It is not currently recommended in the town's CPF project plan, the county open space plan, or the state open space plan. It is not located within a critical environmental area, CEA, or within a New York State or local significant coastal fish and wildlife habitat. The only existing open space that is contiguous to it is that private beach owned by the Property Owners Association. It does not contain significant habitat or significant concentrations of populations of breeding, feeding, or resting wildlife. It does not contain outstanding examples of natural communities as identified by the New York Natural Heritage Program or the East Hampton Natural Resources or Planning Departments. It does not provide an essential buffer to lands in the town nature preserve or to other town, county, state, or federal parkland or open space. It does not contain a trail, does not connect to another trail or trails on adjoining properties, and does not provide a buffer to an existing trail system. It is not located within a coastal barrier resources area and is not prone to chronic coastal or inland flooding. It is not located within the town's water recharge overlay district. It is not located within special groundwater protection area. It is not located within the water protection district. It is not agricultural land. It does not have any historic place and is not located in a historic district. To put this transaction in proper perspective, it's necessary to briefly consider the history of the town's review of the Bell Estate Section 3 subdivision. It contains the largest section, 235 acres, of what once had been Dr. Denison Bell's magnificent 550-acre estate, which he created starting in 1914. The subdivision process for Section 3 started in 1980, and to say it was arduous, or as Rick Whalen wrote in a memo, tortuous, would be an understatement. It resulted in a subdivision map being filed in July 1986 that created only 65 building lots, numerous extensive reserve areas, and the creation of a homeowners association. It is a clustered open space subdivision. The planning board review process spanned the adoption of a new town comprehensive plan and resulted in an effective upzoning of the property from A2 to A3. The end result was that, quote, 54% of the property will remain undeveloped and in a wild state, and, quote, 126 acres are to be left in a pristine, forever wild, natural wooded state for the enjoyment and exclusive use of the landowners within the subdivision. I've given you a copy of an ad from the East Hampton Star from August of 1986 that makes those statements. Isn't that enough open space to be preserved in the Bell Estate Section 3? I think so. The developer was required to make numerous declarations which were recorded in July of 1986 with the filed map. They've been updated and reconfirmed by the Homeowners Association by declarations recorded in 2002 and 2006. These declarations include provisions that restrict the reserved areas in the subdivision map, including the beachfront reserve area, quote, for recreational uses for the common use of all lot owners on said map. Will the town's acquisition of one or more lots in the subdivision grant the general public any new or greater rights to use the subdivision reserve areas? I don't think so. Said declarations also establish and or confirm the existence of scenic and conservation easements that were granted to the town of East Hampton affecting the subject tax map lots, which are all three, 63, 64, 65, that's numbers 28, 24, and 20 of Broadview Road. The establishment of limits of clearing of natural vegetation to a maximum of 25% of each said lot. Fertilized vegetation limitation of 8,000 square feet of each lot. Required the preservation of certain tree species of certain diameter. Bar the creation of any new access to the beach along Gardiner's Bay. The covenants also confirm that the general public shall have an unrestricted right to only traverse the beach adjoining Gardiner's Bay. And also, lastly, that all lots in said map shall be subject to annual and special maintenance charges and assessments. Will the town be required to pay Property Owners Association charges and assessments? It looks like you're hoping you won't have to. I don't know what the outcome of that effort will be. In conclusion, even though the CPF may be very flush with money right now, that is not a good and sufficient reason to waste net $6 million of CPF money. As they say, $6 million here, $6 million there. Sooner or later, it adds up to a significant sum. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you for calling, David. Appreciate your comments.
You're very
Do we have any other callers on the line?
Yes, we do. I have a caller with the last four digits 1022. I'll unmute that caller now.
Good afternoon, members of the town board. It's Richard A. Hammer on the line. I don't have a lot to provide you, but I did want to call in and just offer my support. I'm representing Joseph and Kathy Walker, the owners of the property on Broadview. That is partially the subject of today's public hearing. I did listen to David's extensive proposal, as well as some of the other comments from the Homeowners Association. I did just want to comment that we're sort of at the beginning of this process rather than at the end of it. And on behalf of Joe and Nancy, or Kathy, we're definitely committed to working out any issues with the town as well as the Homeowners Association, and we'll continue those discussions if this transaction is authorized by the town board and moves forward. I did want to support the idea of leveraging private dollars with town dollars that help maximize the value of public acquisitions here, and I think that's one very key component that we're dealt with here with the generosity of Mr. Graziano. I think that's something that we always tried to recreate when I worked in the private sector for nonprofit land conservation organizations. I did want to point out, and I think this has been made adequately, this is very valuable property, obviously. I mean, if you know the area, it's really a unique spot. As a matter of fact, it's somewhat unique that this property hasn't already been developed just due to the, its uniqueness. I think it takes a lot of foresight by the town board to acknowledge the long-term benefits of preserving this property and the resources on it. I do think, in response to one of Mr. Buda's calls, I think it's short-sighted to say the CPF project list is cast in amber. Basically, I think the town board has the responsibility and the duty to be both, to apply their review of these projects with elasticity and as well as proactive review of opportunities that arrive. And that's a very important component of our community preservation plan and how it's been evolving over time. Other than that, if you don't have any direct questions, I just want to thank the board and members of the public for their time and consideration of what I think is a very important conservation effort that I think will provide long-term benefits and probably in the future will be looked back upon as something that was done for long-term benefits and will be a great addition to the town's preserve list. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions for Andy? We appreciate your comments. Be well.
Thank you.
Michael, do we have any other callers on the line?
There are no new callers, but I will say I see that Mr. Whalen is still on hold. I don't know if he is potentially wanted to comment on this. If you want me to double check.
Why don't you check back with him?
All right, I'll unmute that caller now. The last 4 digits end in 7681.
Yes, Rick Whalen here. I would like to comment on this hearing.
Please continue, Rick.
All right, thank you, Peter. Actually, I had no intention of participating at all, but I was obviously on the line for the previous hearing, and I heard Mr. Kirkwood comment, and I figured I would wait on the line. I represent Salvatore Graziano, who is the owner of the property at 20 Broadview, which is proposed to be included by donation in this acquisition, and he and his wife do own 22 Broadview as well. So, I mean, my first comment is, you know, I take what David Buddha said. Some of his points are, I think, something that should be borne in mind. I don't like ad hocery in planning or in you know, in open space acquisition, and I do think it's important that the town be in control of planning its you know, for its own land acquisitions, okay, and not just, you know, grasping at targets of opportunity, if you will. So I think that's a point well taken. It's something the town board should bear in mind. Having said that, the question really is, does this acquisition make sense or not? First of all, the two lots that are on the water, they have not merged under zoning. They're in an open space subdivision, so they don't merge under zoning, even if they're owned by the same property owner. I do think that there may have been a private covenant out there with one of the adjacent property owners, and obviously because I wasn't planning to participate in this hearing, I didn't get an opportunity to check that, and there might have been a private covenant under which there could only be one house built on the two lots. So David may be right, I'm not sure. I do know that 20 Broadview, which is owned by Sal Graziano, is a separate building lot, and so that means at the very least we're talking about two separate building lots, at least one of which is about 3.5 acres of land on top of the bluff overlooking Gardner's Bay. So as Scott Wilson has pointed out, this land is essentially contiguous to other preserved land owned by the Nature Conservancy, which is reserved area in the Bell Estate 3 subdivision, as well as the town parkland and Fresh Pond. To that, by the way, should be added the fact that most of the property at 22 Broadview, which is owned by Salvatore Graziano and his wife Hillary Evans, most of that is actually the subject of scenic easement. So that's essentially contiguous open space. So, you know, considering that my client is donating a substantial amount of cash as well as a building lot to the deal, you know, for the town to buy 5 acres of land in this area, contiguous to other open space, for a net cost of, what is it, I think $6 million, not such a bad deal. And in the long run, I think, and this is something that Andy Hammer just said, you know, in the long run, you buy land, it's almost never, when you go forward in time and you look back, it's almost never a bad deal. So considering the fact that this property is effectively contiguous to other preserved open space, it is in the drainage shed of Fresh Pond, and considering that you've got a public-private partnership, which is significantly reducing the town's cost, I do think it's a worthwhile purchase for the town. So I just wanted to say that. As I said, I hadn't intended to comment initially, but you know, those are my comments on behalf of Mr. Graziano. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. Appreciate the comments. Do we have anyone else on the line, Michael?
Yes, we just got a new caller. The last 4 digits of this caller's phone are 5063. I'll unmute that caller now.
Good afternoon. This is Salvatore Graziano. I actually wasn't intending to comment as well, but just listening to the hearing today, I wanted to let you know something maybe more personal in nature. So my wife and I own 22 Broadview. We also own 20 Broadview. 22 Broadview has its own driveway going to Broadview, and 20 has not been developed. But when we built 22 Broadview, we always had the intent of building a guest house for our children, who are now adults, on 20. We have plans to build on 20. But land preservation is important to us. We urged my mother-in-law, my wife's mother, to preserve some land on Underwood Drive, and that was very successful, and we were very happy. When we saw this Walker property come on the market, we did, obviously we would benefit personally from it being preserved, but so would neighbors to the left and to the right, and just in general, because our construction at 22 Broadview was, received with a lot of complaints, as I understand. But what I want to point out to the board is when I started speaking to Scott Wilson and offering a financial contribution, he demanded something else on your behalf, which was far more difficult for us, and it's created some tension in our family, which is we had to give up our guest house. We are actually looking around town to buy a house for the kids that's not too far away. So it's a bittersweet transaction, but we're doing this for the good, not just of ourselves, but of the entire community. 20 Broadview would be right on the road. It would be visible where there are now just pristine woods that go all the way down to Albert's Beach. So yes, we are personally benefiting, but we also believe in the greater good. We've helped convince our mother-in-law, who was reluctant to do this in Underwood Drive. She sold 2 lots. Scott Wilson is aware of that. And we are doing this not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. Amagansett is especially beautiful given how pristine it is, and we'd like to contribute to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to call in, Mr. Graziano. We appreciate your comments and your generosity. Do we have any other callers on the line, Michael?
No, there are no new callers. There is just one person holding on for the next hearing, I believe.
I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Carol, if you'd read the final hearing notice of today's meeting.
Notice is hereby given the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 17th at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, to consider comments of all persons either for or against a local law entitled a local law amending Chapter 255 zoning with regard to clarifying the code as to accessory buildings. The law is intended to clarify and retain the original intent of the code as to accessory structures.
Thank you very much, Carol. Do we have any callers on the line for this public hearing?
Do you want Nancy Lynn to
I'm sorry, there's Nancy Lynn. Nancy Lynn, yeah, please give us a brief introduction. Thank you.
No problem. As the board is well aware, because we've talked about this several times in work sessions, but to go over it, I won't go through each section. We are looking to find some clarity in the code to preserve the board's intention to make sure that our accessory structures are safely built and that they are not overdeveloped into additional dwelling spaces. And so there are sections of our code that are amended to make it clear that if you do not put a 5-foot separation, that your gross floor area is going to be the aggregate amount of all of those contiguous accessory structures, and so that they can still remain within the limitations that we have of the 600 square feet or 200 square feet if there is plumbing. There's some additional definitions to assist in this, including a more detailed definition of open air appendage. And there also is some limitations on accessory buildings, also to keep them from becoming dwelling spaces. And those are also with concern for safety for anyone using those areas, so that they do not pose any health risks if they don't have the proper building code requirements that dwelling spaces need. So that is basically what this amendment is just to continue what the town board has done in the past with regards to our code and making sure that accessory structures are that accessory and not dwellings.
Thank you, Nancy Lynn. Michael, do we have any callers for this hearing?
I believe we do. I have a caller with the last 4 digits of their phone are 4601. I'll unmute that caller now.
Hi, good afternoon, Peter and the rest of the board. This is Chris DeSuno again.
Hey, Chris.
Hi. So my comments about this were nothing that Nancy mentioned. The things that are concerning to me about what's written here is all about conditioned space. we spoke earlier about the amendment to the energy code, and part of the importance of that energy code is the building envelope and the control of the energy throughout the building. And what this includes is saying that the habitable area is going to be included in anything that's in conditioned space, such as attics. Now, the new code, the way that it's built, that we have, it's really asking us to condition attics as a controlled space because it becomes part of the building envelope. Now, I mean, I could tell you from my own house, which is highly efficient, we changed the attic to be conditioned last year. And, the height in my attic is only 4 feet high. It's only a little shed area. But the importance of it was that the entire envelope no longer contains a volume that can be 120, 140 degrees, rather when you have an insulated attic floor. So I think adding anything about conditioned spaces to this section of the code is in direct conflict with what our goals are for the energy code. Secondarily, and on a less important note, the accessory comment about conditioning the spaces, I think is really kind of arbitrary in that, an attached garage, for example, if you have radiant heat in the floor there and you moderate that temperature to 50 degrees, it's a very low impact energy consumption that is adjacent to the internal wall of the house and is better for the energy envelope of the home. A detached structure, I don't see quite why we're adding that. Why would we be adding that if you wanted to store books? I know personally we've lost family heirlooms and things like that, just to humidity and mold and whatnot. So I don't know why we have to no longer dehumidify a shed or storage area. So I don't see where that fits into this portion of the building code. I think you should leave the energy code to the energy code and the building code to the building code. It's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, Chris. And, we did have some discussion about conditioned space. And, one of the concerns was raised about what the unintended consequences might be. And so that you could have for instance, a detached garage, if it required, what was stored there might require, conditioning in order to preserve it, antique car collection or what have you, you name it. So there was some concern about that language. And, I think that was something that we didn't consider was the example you gave where the new energy code requires attics to be a conditioned space. Our intent was to ensure that accessory structures don't become living space and basically apartments, rented out during summer and that sort of thing. So appreciate your.
I mean, unfortunately, I lost my entire collection of of some sculptures and models from my college years just in a single August to humidity. A whole bunch of woodwork collections have just gone because it seems kind of like I don't know how you would regulate this in terms of code enforcement either. So that would be really difficult.
Peter, if I may, the language is specific only to prohibit the conditioning of that accessory area if it's intended to create a habitable or living space. So it does allow for attics to be conditioned space without any violation of the code, and any sheds or detached garages and the like can be conditioned spaces. It's only when you condition that space in order to be able to make it into a illegal guest house or additional dwelling space that there is a problem. So the only way there's a prohibition is if it was conditioned with the intent of making it dwelling space.
Thank you for that.
You're going to have to prove, by adding this to the code, you have to prove intent of habitability for somebody to put an air conditioner in their shed.
No, it's the opposite. In order for it to be a violation, you have to prove that it was the air conditioning was put in there with the intent to make a habitable space. So it is not on the builder to show intent of not doing that. It's actually the reverse.
My point is, if I built an 8x8 shed that's not insulated, just like Hampton Village Code doesn't allow you to insulate pool houses and so on, but you are allowed to put an air conditioner in it. Now, if I build a shed and you can see the framing and the sheathing and I put an air conditioner in there, there's no way to know what the intent is. So I don't know what advantage the code gets by adding this language to it.
I believe that the concern is that there have been sheds that have turned into living spaces, which are extremely dangerous for those inhabitants. And so you can determine that when code enforcement gets a search warrant and goes in and finds that there's a bed and a dresser and an eating space in there, or cooking appliances in there, and then that intent can be deemed from that situation. So it's not driving by and seeing a shed that has an air conditioner is not the issue. It's in order to be able to enforce the code when there is a misuse of an accessory structure in that manner, because it does pose such an incredible health and safety risk.
I think you just made my point. If there's no, what would be the point of putting a section in the code to say that you can't have an air conditioner if there's no intention of, if there's no bed or cooking implements or anything else? So I don't know. It seems like extraneous code to me.
Well, we appreciate your comments, Chris, and that's something we'll take another look at to see if there's a way to better express what the intent of the board is.
All right, thank you very much. But most importantly, including an attic space in the gross floor area that is completely uninhabitable simply because it's conditioned is not, and that is the way it reads here. It's not good for our energy code, and it should. I don't see why it has any bearing on our local code. I think that has to do with the energy code in terms of square footage. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate your comments. Do we have any other callers for this public hearing?
Yes, we do. The next caller's last four digits end in 8764. I'll unmute that caller.
Good afternoon. This is David Buda. I would like to comment on this hearing briefly. First, let me state that I am fully in agreement with the intent and need for the revisions to eliminate the abuses that were identified and are sought to be controlled. However, I have to say that I agree with a lot of what the prior caller said, and I'd like to add a few more points on that topic. Our zoning code, which I believe the modern code came out in 1984, has built up over the years, and I've only been here 20 years, but there are certain ambiguities that drive people nuts. And this whole question of habitable living space, dwelling space, is not well defined in the code. There is a definition, and the only definition that I can find for habitable buildings, which is very brief, which is unusual for the town code, a building which contains one or more dwelling units, such as a single-family residence, multiple residence, or motel. I don't find a definition of habitable space or living space, although I do note that in the affordable accessory apartment section there's another term thrown about, which is habitable living space. So that really mixes people up. With regard to the language in this proposed change concerning floor area, habitable or livable, I would like to suggest respectfully that the word may on the fourth line of the notice should be shall, because whenever you, I think using the term condition space in a residential building may be considered habitable, whenever you throw in a may, it just gives attorneys a loophole to jump through or to drive a truck through. And if you really sit back and read this whole definition of habitable or livable floor area, I think it's actually unintendedly circular. It seems to create a definition of what habitable or livable space is, and I think we all know that you shouldn't include it in a definition, a circular definition of a term that you're trying to define. So as well as prior caller's comment about intent, I don't know that anyone easily can determine intent, and that code should try, if at all possible, to establish objective criteria that can be easily determined by enforcement people. So I support the intent, the need, but I think that this is a difficult area with a lot of ambiguous or missing definitions in our code, and perhaps it all should be straightened out once and for all, so everyone knows what they're talking about and knows whether or not they have habitable, livable dwelling space or anything like that by looking at the code and the succinct definitions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Michael, do we have any other callers on the line?
The only caller not hasn't spoken on this is Mr. Wayland is still on hold. If you want me to see if he wishes to comment.
Please.
One moment. I'll unmute that now.
Richard Whalen here again. I usually don't plan to spend this much time with you guys, so sorry about that. I have sort of the same concerns that Chris mentioned earlier concerning this on the issue of conditioned space. So I had a client a couple of years ago who helped him get a building permit for an accessory building, less than 600 square feet, no plumbing at all in the building. That was intended basically for his work in doing electronic media. And in order to do that, he's planning to use it year-round, so I'm quite sure that it's heated in the wintertime. I don't see a problem with that. I've had people inquire of me of, can I build a workshop, for like a woodworking shop in a detached accessory building, again, with no internal plumbing, and, they might want to use it in the wintertime, and, if they're going to use it in the wintertime, obviously it has to be heated. So the current definition of accessory building in the code specifies that an accessory building is not to be used for, this is out of section 255-1-20, an accessory building is not allowed to be used for cooking, living, or sleeping purposes. Cooking and sleeping is very straightforward. We know what those are. The living purposes is a little bit, ambiguous. It might not be a bad idea if the town were to clarify that. But the idea basically is if you build a detached accessory building, no more than 600 square feet, and you don't have any plumbing in it, I don't see a reason why the building should not have the ability to be conditioned. And, to the extent that this proposed change would either prohibit that or might prohibit that, I would ask that you could reconsider. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Any other callers on the line right now?
No,
Michael?
No, there are no callers that haven't spoken. Nope.
Okay. Normally, I'll take a motion here.
Motion to close.
You're Sylvia. You're muted.
I'm muted. Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Thank you, everyone. We have no callers for public comment on the line right now. I'd like to move forward with our.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Supervisor, if I may, there is a call that had previously spoken that hasn't hung up. If you wish me to check if they have a public comment.
Please.
Sure. The caller's last four digits and then 4601. I'll unmute that now. Hello, caller ending in 4601. Are you there?
This is Chris. I already spoke.
Thank you very much. No, there are no other callers.
Okay, in that case, we'll move on with resolutions. I don't know, is Councilwoman Kathy Burke Gonzalez available on the call?
If she's not, I'll read her resolutions if that pleases the board.
She
Yes.
is on. She is available, but she's not speaking. So I believe.
Okay,
Go ahead, David.
Great. Let's, David, if you could just please read the Councilwoman's resolutions for her.
With pleasure. I would like to offer resolution 2021-713. This is the approval of the warrant number 6B for the approval of claims for $2,279,336.15 for the utility warrant, and 6B, which equals out to $53,283.71.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-714. This is appoint and amend the East Hampton Volunteer Ocean Rescue members for 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
715. This is a notice to bidders for EH21-028. This is for food service and kitchenware items for June 2021. The bid is available June 17th, 2021 and due by July 8th, 2021. Any questions or concerns, please contact our purchasing department by emailing jcarroza at ehamptonny.gov or by calling 631-324-4141.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
716. This is a notice for RFP for EH 2021-103 architectural and engineering services for the new senior center. Proposal available June 24th, 2021, and due back. The proposal is due back July 22nd, 2021. Again, if anyone has any questions, please contact our purchasing department directly at 631-324-4141 between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday to Friday, except holidays.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
717 is accept the bid EH21-025 is for the supply and delivery of miscellaneous kitchenware items for June 2021 to Sam Tell and Sons.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
718 is a budget modification for human services with the East Hampton Town Senior Nutritional Program producing frozen meals for seniors 60 plus. Over 80,000 meals to be delivered. We need, as the Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez mentioned, do a budget modification in the amount of $60,000 from the Montauk Nutritional Program to the Senior Citizen Program in the amount of $60,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
2021-719 is the approval of various special event permits. These are Fourth the Kids Foundation on 7/4 and 7/5 of 2021. This is for the next one is for the Montauk Chamber concerts at Gosman's 7/11/2021 to 8/29 2021. These are for Sundays. The next also is for the Montauk Chamber for the Montauk Soccer Field. It's for the outdoor movie night for Tuesday, July 13th. Next is for the Montauk Library for the Montauk Green. Story time on the Green for Friday, 7/9/2021 between 4 and 8, and Wednesday, 7/14/2021 through 7/28/2021. The next is for the Longhouse Reserve Say Yes and annual benefit, which will be held on July 24th, 2021. Next is for the East Hampton Aviation Association for the East Hampton Airport Just Plain Fun Day, which is going to be held on Saturday, 9/11/2021. Next is the Montauk Beach Properties Association annual beach party, the 44th annual beach party. Well done. This will be held on August 7th, 2021. And the last one would be the Montauk Artists Associations Incorporated, the Montauk Green Outdoor Art Show. This will be held on Friday, August 13th, and Saturday, August 14th, and Sunday, August 15th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. It's great to see so many events that we're able to participate in now going forward. Thankfully.
For my resolutions, I'd like to offer Resolution 2021-720. This is a notice of public hearing to amend Section 240-60, Schedule 12. This is for commercial vehicles over certain weights, limits, and passenger capacities excluded. This is to address certain safety concerns in the area and by prohibiting commercial vehicles weighing over 9 tons along certain portions of Accabonac Road above Collins Ave but below Floyd Street. We discussed this previously in a work session, and this we will hold this public hearing on July 1st, 2021 at 2 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
721 is to appoint seasonal harbor master Dale Petruska in the Marine Patrol at an annual rate of $30 per hour to be paid bi-weekly effective June 19th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
722 is to appoint seasonal lifeguards for June 2021. This would be effective for June 18th, 2021 through September 18th, 2021. Various names at various compensation rates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
2021-723 is to appoint seasonal employees in the Recreation Department for June 2021. These individuals be hereby appointed seasonally to the Parks and Rec Department to be paid bi-weekly, effective June 18th, 2021. They're all recreational aid and recreational specialist titles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
2021-724 is to appoint seasonal laborer in the Parks Department, Alonzo Mosley, at the hourly rate of $18.23 an hour to be effective June 19th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
725 is to appoint seasonal laborer in the Parks Department, Anthony Neal, to be paid the hourly rate of $18.23 an hour, effective June 19th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
726 is to appoint harbor master to the Marine Patrol, Derek Paulson, whereas Suffolk County Department of Civil Service has given the examination for harbor master, and Derek Paulson is immediately reachable on said list. Derek Paulson is hereby appointed to the position of full-time harbor master with the East Hampton Town Police Department Marine Patrol Unit at an hourly rate of $28.47 per hour, annually $59,217.39, grade 24, step 5 for a 40-hour work week, effective June 27th, 2021.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
And welcome, Derek. 2021-727 is a title change from seasonal recreational aide to park attendant, Kylie Bono. She was previously appointed the title of recreational aide, and now she's going to be to park attendant. The hourly rate is $18 per hour with no change in the budget account, effective June 18th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
728 is a title change for lifeguards. This title change is through the recommendation of Recreational Chief John Rooney and Chief Lifeguard John Ryan Jr. for Devin Coy, now as a captain lifeguard, $18.50, effective May 21st, 2021. Thomas Mott, captain lifeguard, $18.50, May 29th, 2021. And Aiden Forrest, lieutenant lifeguard, at $17, effective June 18th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
729 is a payout upon retirement for Virginia Generich, who was an employee, a long-lasting employee of the town of East Hampton, most recently specifically in the Parks and Recreation Department. She retired from her full-time position. Congratulations to her. Effective May 30th, 2021. She accrued a vacation time balance of 127.26 hours, accrued sick time balance of 469.85 hours, and accrued compensatory rate at 239.88 hours. Hereby, she'll be authorized to get a check from the payroll for the vacation time of $4,001.92, sick time of $14,775.65, compensatory time, dry, $7,543.49, and prorated longevity of $1,333.33 for a gross total of $27,654.40 as a final payout.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
Excuse me. 2021-730 is a payout upon retirement for Dale Petruska, who is recently retired from his full-time as a senior harbor master, effective May 30th, 2021. And he cured vacation time. The balance was 941.96 hours. Cured sick time was 430 hours, 430.07 hours, and a cured compensatory time was a balance of 229.94 hours. The budget office is going to get a check, the payroll for the vacation time to amount to $37,341.91. Sick and personal time, $17,049.05. Compensatory, I'm having trouble there. $9,115.40, and prorated longevity at $1,125 for a total gross payment of $64,631.36 as his final payout.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Congratulations, Dale. 2021-731 is the Roth authorization of CPF project plan addition. Whereas the town board held a public hearing on June 3rd, 2021 at 2 p.m. We would like to add this property to the project plan addition, which is approximately 8 acres of developed land reportedly owned by the estate of Enid Roth, located at 92 Cross Highway, East Hampton, tax map 300-170-3-31.2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
732 is the Roth authorized the CPF acquisition and amend the 2021 management and stewardship plan. Again, this is for the estate of Enid Roth at 92 Cross Highway, East Hampton, tax map 300-170-3-31.2. Again, this is a property that was being bequeathed to the town with the intended purposes to return the property to its natural state.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
733 is to authorize CPF water quality funding for 2020 RFA projects, where the town of East Hampton issued a request for applications for its water quality improvement projects in January 2021, which closed on March 11th of 2021 for its 2021 round of funding, where several proposals projects were submitted requesting water quality funding. We had a public hearing on this, and the town of East Hampton is moving forward with 6 water quality improvement projects, one for the town of East Hampton through the Natural Resources Department, care of the Friends of Georgia Pond, for the Georgia Pond and 27 Rest Stop at an amount of $50,000 for 9-point source pollution abatement. Second was for the Peconic Land Trust for installation and monitoring of permeable reactive barrier to reduce groundwater nitrogen input into Georgia Pond for $74,428. Next would be Montauk Shores Condominium for wastewater treatment improvements for the amount of $200,000. Next would be for the Village of East Hampton for engineering design for sewer shed to increase the sewer service for the existing municipal sewage treatment plant for $288,800.
Sorry, David, that's Village of Sag Harbor. I think you said East Hampton.
I apologize. Village of Sag Harbor, that was. Next project would be for Nineveh, for the Beach Property Owners Association for bio infiltration rain gardens to be designed for the amount of $53,275. And lastly, for Cornell Cooperative Extension for a multi-phase permeable reactive barrier to remediate ammonia entering Accabonac Harbor for $79,225.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
734 is authorized payment to Perico for a 2020 invoice for equipment leased for Gann Road. The invoice amount for the 2020 was $144.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
735 is for the Phillips property demolition, would be bid EH21-030. The bid is available June 24th, 2021. The bid is due back July 22nd, 2021. For further information, please contact our purchasing Department at 324-418-3, beginning on Thursday, June 24th. There is a pre-bid meeting on site on July 8th, 2021 at 11 a.m. The location is 395 Panico Road, Montauk Highway, East Hampton, New York.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
736 is the accepted bid EH 21023, which is for the printing of miscellaneous forms for 2021. Montauk Printing is hereby accepted for the terms of 1A through 8B, and effects of color is hereby accepted for item 9.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
737 is the budget modification for Highway Department. This is actually to purchase our electric leaf blowers for the department, and the amount from emergency supplies for $3,400 to small tool in the amount of $3,400.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
738 is the reduced Kirk Park Beach daily parking fee to $35.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
739 is accept the proposal of LK McLean Professional Services for the Westlake Comfort Station replacement. This will be to develop designing, permitting, construction support services required for a new pre-engineered comfort station. McLean has agreed to provide the services at the cost of the town, not to exceed $35,000 as set forth in their May 21st, 2021 proposal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-740 is LIP grant of scenic and conservation easement to schedule a public hearing and notice of the public hearing. That would be on July 1st at 2 p.m. This is the grantor is Camilla Lip at 21 Bianco Road in East Hampton, and the reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-741 is to appoint Catherine King to the 2021 Anti-Bias Task Force.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You have
Passed.
a third aye?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-742 is to retain Fine Arts and Sciences for a planning department evaluation at the $150 an hour, not to exceed $25,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried.
Resolution 2021-743 is adoption of extensions for HUD HCV 2021. This is for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES, to provide U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development with broad authority to waive or establish alternative requirements for numerous statutory regulatory requirements for the Section 8 housing.
Second.
Yeah, that's
Second.
fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
2021-744 is to retain Con and Con enforcement of court orders and resolve the payment shall be paid at the rate of $325 per hour at an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-745 is budget modification and sanitation department from one-line general repairs in the amount of $2,000 to budget line parts in the amount of $2,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-746 is to accept a grant of scenic and conservation easement for 23 FVMTK LLC. This is from Mike Rinaldi, managing member, and it is at 23 Fairview Road in Montauk, and the reviewing agency is Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-747 is approval to waive ARB fees for Calvary Baptist Church.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carried.
2021-748 is notice to bids. The town wants to obtain services for green heating and cooling, an East Hampton Town campaign, and specifications are available in the purchasing department, which can be reached through Jeannie Carosa between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Starting Thursday, June 17th. And the bids will be opened on Thursday, July 15th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's carried.
Resolution 2021-749 is a resolution to retain the outside services of e-typist, which is a service required for our occasional need to provide transcripts of recordings of various hearings, and it's in an amount not to exceed $3,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 2021-750 is to appoint traffic control officer to the East Hampton Town Police Department, William Rayner, at an hourly rate of $14.25, effective retroactive June 13th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 2021-751 is to appoint additional members to the Montauk Wastewater Committee. They would be Andrew Harris, Dan Cahill, and Steve Baumgart.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 752 is to appoint provisional appointment for administrative assistant Allison McDougall, and that is at an hourly rate of $27.09, annual salary of $56,347.62, grade 26, 40-hour work week, retroactive June 2nd, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 753 is a reclassification of principal and head clerk and amend the CSEA Schedule A. And that would be for principal office assistant Cindy Grabowski in the highway department. No change of salary, hours, or budget line.
Second.
I should also say it's retroactive to June 30th, which is odd because this is June 17th. Yeah. 2018 is the key there.
Okay. Second.
Yep, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Aye. Passed and carried. 754 payout upon resignation, Lorraine McKay, and that is for vacation hours, compensatory hours, and prorated longevity, for a gross total of $2,807.76.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 755 is to amend resolution 2021-633 RFP EH 2020-103 Town of East Hampton Energy Initiative Support Services. And whereas the board passed the resolution for those energy initiative support services for effective term of June 30th, 2021 through June 29th, 2022, but the term was mistakenly listed. Therefore, it's actually amended to correct the term July 1, 2021 through June 30th of 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 756 is to accept bid number EH21-019 East Hampton Town Police Department Roof Access Ladder Assembly. That goes to Low Duca, and that would be at a total cost of $40,000, $40,433 from two different fund lines.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 757 is to accept bid EH21-024 printing of police forms and brochures for 2021. That's Montauk Printing, Effects of Color, Ridgewood Press, Concept Print, and the Mines Press.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 758 is notice of bidders EH21-027 supply and delivery of auto parts for 2021. The bids available June 17th, 2021 and due back on July 8th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 759 is to extend contract EH 19-025 Fort Hill Cemetery interments and maintenance contract for Allen Burke Backhoe Services. And that would be at an annual cost of $2,200. I'm sorry, annual, but it's at $2,200 per month. Total cost $26,400 plus fee per incomplete interment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 760 is budget modification for the police department, and this is to help fund the access ladder. 34,500 funding will come from the capital fund, 6,000 from contingency to subcontractors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried. Resolution 2021-761 is professional services. Cano and Skate Hill PC, and that's to increase the cap. And we need to raise that by $5,000, constituting a total of $15,000 to be spent for legal services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried. 762, Habitat for Humanity, accept grant of scenic and conservation easement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried. 763 is Habitat for Humanity, Suffolk Housing Development Fund Company Incorporated, grant of a road widening easement.
Second.
This would be at,
Oh, sorry.
yeah. I'm just going to give you the address, but
3 Hartley.
thank you. 3 Hartley Avenue Boulevard, 3 Hartley Boulevard. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 2021-764 is to approve expenditure for Goldberg's. And this is for food for the department's head meeting on June 30th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 765 is to revise resolution 2021-242, retain Honorable Howard A. Levine, Alan Goldberg, Esquire, the firm of Whiteman, Osterman, Hanna, and LLP as counsel. This is in the Seaview appeal case. That will be at, for Judge Levine, that would be at $610 an hour. Alan Goldberg paid at a rate of $365 an hour. Other members of the firm at their approved rates on the 2021 calendar, not to exceed $25,000 without further authorization of the town board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 2021-766 is a reimbursement for food, 3 Mile Harbor Fireworks, and that is for not to exceed $750.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 767 is to amend the Town of East Hampton's 401A special pay plan to include appointed employees, and that's for U.S. Bencorp. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 768 is to extend equipment lease, town telephone equipment, Meridian Leasing, and that is at a cost of $980 per month.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. 769 is to extend agreement, specialized bus service for Montauk 2021, RFP EH 2017-166 for the Hampton Hopper LLC, and they will be providing us a total of 75 days, 7 days a week, commencing at 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's scheduled to begin June 24th, 2021 through September 6th, 2021 at a rate not to exceed $100,754. And I will mention that we're glad to see that this service can be reinstated. It was actually sidelined during COVID. We know we're going to have a very busy summer this summer. And although there's not any state funding available to us this year, this would allow us to move forward. And I will also mention that Hampton Hopper is looking for some additional bus drivers if anyone's interested. We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Savoy, before you adopt that, I have a change in the fund line from finance.
Okay.
If I could give you that, it's actually going to be.
There's a line for surplus as well.
Yeah, A0. Well, here's the line they said to use for it. It's A041775, appropriated unreserved surplus.
Right.
So
Do I have a second?
That.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 770, approved license with AT&T for equipment on the temporary cell tower on Stephen Hand's Path.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
2021-771, eliminate cooperative ownership parking permit limit. We did have a COVID limit because of beach capacity. This would lift that 125 person limit, and that's effective June 17th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 2021-772 is to approve sand replenishment for Montauk beaches, whereas the Montauk and Ditch Plains beaches are in need of sand replenishment due to recent storms. And we have this will be approving the amount of sand quantity not to exceed 15,000 yards. And we are in the process of getting the professional surveyor sea level mapping to give us an exact quantity. This would authorize up to 15,000 cubic yards that's set forth under the Highway Department contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried. Do we have any further resolutions to offer?
John, did you have one?
What's that?
Did you have a resolution?
Resolutions to be offered today?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. Sorry. I didn't know I saw.
In that case,
that was actually added to the agenda, though. That was the Hopper resolution.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that Saturday is June 19th, otherwise known as Juneteenth. It commemorates the end of slavery in the United States. And despite the surrender of Robert E. Lee at Appomattox on April 9th, 1865, the Western Army of the Trans-Mississippi did not surrender until June 2nd. On the morning of Monday, June 19th, 1865, Union Major General Gordon Granger arrived at the island of Galveston, Texas, take command of more than 2,000 federal troops and enforce the emancipation of its slaves, oversee the peaceful transition. This is a date which has been celebrated for many, many years, although I think in the general public, many have been unaware. And it's certainly something that I think we should acknowledge and continue to celebrate. So I'm just putting it out there. Celebrate with us on Saturday, Juneteenth. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session at 3:15.
That's fine for me.
And we have.
I don't have the language. Motion to go into exec session. I know we're going to discuss a planning board. And I think in the final
possible acquisitions,
personnel,
contract,
personnel, sorry.
And advice of counsel.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And what's the time again, Peter?
3:15.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe, be well. Beautiful weather. And we'll see you soon.
Joy.